No one marries a fat girl. The afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Rosewood Cafe, casting golden rectangles across the worn wooden tables. Emma Chen sat alone at a corner table, her fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. She checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes, then set it down with a soft sigh. This was her 5th blind date in 2 months, and she already knew how it would end. Her best friend Sarah meant well. She always did, but Emma was tired of the pitying looks, the awkward conversations, and the men who stayed just long enough to be polite before making their excuses. She was tired of seeing disappointment flicker across their faces when they first spotted her across the room. The cafe door opened, and Emma looked up instinctively. A man walked in, tall and confident, wearing a charcoal suit that looked expensive even from a distance. His dark hair was swept back perfectly, and his presence seemed to shift the energy of the entire room. Emma watched him pause at the entrance, scanning the space with sharp gray eyes. She looked away quickly, returning her attention to her coffee. Men who looked like that didn't show up for dates with women who looked like her. But then she heard footsteps approaching her table. Emma, his voice was deep and warm, with a hint of curiosity. She looked up, startled. Yes, I'm David Harrison. I believe Sarah set us up. He smiled, and it reached his eyes, crinkling the corners in a way that seemed genuine. Emma's mouth fell open slightly. This had to be a mistake. This man, who looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine, couldn't possibly be her blind date. Sarah had mentioned setting her up with someone from work, but Emma had assumed it would be another middle manager with a receding hairline and a beer belly. "You're David," she managed to say. "I am." He gestured to the chair across from her. "May I sit down?" "Of course." "Yes." "Sorry." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. She smoothed down her cardigan, suddenly hyper-aware of every roll and curve of her body. David sat down gracefully, unbuttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. He caught the attention of a passing waiter and ordered an espresso, then turned his full attention to Emma. His gaze was steady and interested, not the quick, dismissive once-over she'd grown accustomed to. "Sarah's told me quite a bit about you," he said. "She mentioned you work in graphic design." Emma nodded, still processing the situation. "Yes, I freelance mostly. Logo designs, branding packages, that sort of thing." "That's impressive. Building your own business takes courage." They fell into conversation more easily than Emma expected. David asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to her answers. He laughed at her jokes, real laughs that made his shoulders shake. When she talked about her work, his eyes lit up with genuine interest. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was all too good to be true. Men like David Harrison didn't date women like her. There had to be a catch. Finally, during a pause in their conversation, Emma set down her cup with more force than she intended. The clink of ceramic against wood seemed loud in the cozy cafe. "I need to ask you something," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. David raised an eyebrow. "Okay, why did you agree to this date? Sarah must have shown you my picture. You had to know." She gestured vaguely at herself, unable to finish the sentence. Understanding crossed David's face, followed by something that looked like sadness. "What did I have to know?" Emma took a deep breath. The words tasted bitter, but she'd learned long ago that it was better to address the elephant in the room directly. "That I'm fat. That I'm not the kind of woman men like you usually date. I've been doing this blind date thing for a while now, and I know how it goes." "So why did you show up? Is this some kind of bet? A dare?" The cafe seemed to grow quieter around them. David leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "May I tell you something about myself?" Emma nodded, her heart pounding. "I'm the CEO of a tech company. I'm sure Sarah mentioned that." He paused. "What she probably didn't mention is that I grew up poor. My father worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I wore the same pair of shoes for 2 years straight, even after they had holes in the soles." Emma listened, confused about where this was going. "When I started my company, every investor I met told me I was too young, too inexperienced, too ambitious. They looked at me and saw someone who didn't fit their image of success." He met her eyes directly. "I've spent my entire life being underestimated because people judged me by my appearance or my background. I know exactly what it feels like when someone decides your worth before they know anything about you." Emma felt something shift in her chest. David continued, his voice warm. "Sarah showed me your picture. Yes. I saw a woman with kind eyes and a beautiful smile. She also told me you were funny, talented, and one of the most loyal people she'd ever met. Those are the things that made me want to meet you. The rest is just packaging. But, Emma started. Let me finish, David said, leaning forward. My last girlfriend was a model. Magazine covers, runway shows, the works. Everyone thought we were perfect together. We looked good in photos. His smile turned rueful. But she was cruel. She criticized everyone around her, including me. She cared more about appearances than anything else. I spent 2 years trying to make that relationship work before I finally admitted the truth, we had nothing real. Emma swallowed hard, feeling tears prick at her eyes. So when you ask me why I showed up, David said softly, it's because I'm tired of shallow. I'm tired of relationships based on what looks good on paper. I wanted to meet someone real. Someone who's had to work for things, who understands that true value isn't measured by a number on a scale or a balance in a bank account. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers, giving her the choice. I showed up because Sarah said you were worth meeting. And in the last hour, you've proved her absolutely right. Emma looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. His fingers were warm and steady. I've heard that phrase before, she said quietly. No one marries a fat girl, sir. Someone actually said that to me once, on a date just like this one. David's jaw tightened. Then they were a fool who didn't deserve your time. He smiled then, that genuine smile that crinkled his eyes. How about we prove them all wrong? Emma felt tears slip down her cheeks, but for the first time in a long time, they were happy tears. I'd like that. Good, David said, his thumb gently brushing across her knuckles. Because I have a feeling this is the beginning of something extraordinary. Outside the cafe windows, the autumn leaves danced in the breeze, and the afternoon sun painted everything in shades of gold. Inside, two people who'd been judged by their covers sat together, finally seen for the stories written on their pages. And it was, indeed, the beginning of something extraordinary.